This is the bit that I've been so excited for. Let's delve into some preventative strategies for aging. So I know that you are a big proponent of caloric restriction. So could we just delve into the sort of science behind it, what you know, and what that would look like in terms of a daily practice?
Yeah, right. Joe, I want your listeners to know that I have, for the first time, listed what I and my father, wife, and brother do on a daily basis, down to even the yogurt that I take in the morning. But yeah, let's get to the nuts and bolts of what I'm talking about. Now, you'll remember that my information theory of aging is at the crux of trying to explain why a lot of things go wrong in our bodies. And I think it's the inability of cells to read their genes at the right time. One of the analogies that I use in the book is the DVD information, the pits in the DVD, which is the beautiful symphony, the music of our lives, is the same as the DNA in our cells. And what we've realized is that the information on the DVD or the DNA in our cells is essentially intact. The information to be young is still in someone who's old, but it's as if the DVD has been scratched so that the reader cannot read the symphony and it's playing the tunes, the songs, and the concerto in the wrong order, and it's a mess. Same thing I think is going on with our cells. They don't read the genes at the right time. So what we want to do is to delay that process of the scratching of the DVD, as it were. And one of the best ways I think to do that is to activate the body's defenses against aging. We actually have genes and what we call genetic pathways, biochemical pathways that take care of us, but they become complacent. If you sit around, you eat a lot, your longevity genes, as we call them, will not be hyperactive. In fact, they'll essentially shut down to try and preserve energy. And the genes that we work on have a name. They're called sirtuins. The SIR is interesting because it stands for silent information regulator. Again, this information theory of aging. So what do I recommend? What we've shown in many studies, in my lab and others, is that being hungry is good for you. Now, that's not malnutrition. It's certainly not starvation. Please don't do that to yourself. And eating disorders are not going to make you live longer. But if you skip a meal or two during the day and eat a larger meal later in the day, that is a way that many people, myself included, believe can activate our longevity genes and slow down the pace of aging and the scratching of the DVD. That's what I do. I mentioned yogurt in the morning. I have a couple of spoonfuls just to get going. But the rest of the day up until, if I'm lucky, about 8 o'clock at night, 7 to 8 o'clock, I'm not eating. If I'm really hungry and I can't stand it, I go and get a bit of lunch. That's fine. A bit of salad, maybe a bit of sushi. But really, it's not as much about what you eat as when you eat. And that's been a breakthrough in the last few years. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just go and eat terrible food and high fructose corn syrup and expect to get away with it. Not at all. But we used to think that it was what you ate more than when, but it's been flipped on its head.
Wow. What do you know about the what versus when? Could you just delve into that a little bit more?
Does that work? Yeah. So this is 25 years of my lab's research and many others collaborating with us. What we've discovered using simple organisms like yeast cells for making beer and bread and wine. We've studied those cells. We've also now studied mice, and we've got a lot of data from humans as well. So what I'm going to tell you is really, really well established in the world's top scientific journals. What we've realized is that when you're hungry or you've exercised, you'll turn on these longevity pathways. There are three main players. I work on the sirtuins, as I mentioned. There are a couple of others. One's called AMPK, and that responds to low energy in the body. And there's a third one called TOR, and TOR responds to having low amounts of amino acids and low protein. And together they form this surveillance network in our bodies keeping us healthy, stabilizing our epigenome, stopping the scratches from occurring, and practically, we think keeping us super fit, super healthy, and free of cancer and all those other diseases of aging. And though we haven't proven that any of these extend human lifespan, there are some studies looking at the genetic variants in humans of these genes, as well as a drug such as metformin, which is a diabetes drug that can be prescribed for type 2 diabetes, that seems to prevent diseases beyond just type 2 diabetes, such as cancer and heart disease and frailty, and even Alzheimer's. So all of that put together says that if we put our bodies in a state of adversity or perceived adversity, and that can be hunger, it can be exercise, so you want to be running every few days, getting puffed for at least 10 minutes to get your body out of that complacency state. And there are some other things that I talk about in the book that are also potential ways to boost the body's defenses. Being really hot in a sauna seems to be beneficial for health, possibly through these same mechanisms. And dunking in a cold bath, shocking your body, also improves the production of what's called brown fat. And brown fat is thought to be very healthy as well, and also involves the sirtuin genes we work on. But together, what I'm saying is you've got to be a little bit uncomfortable. You've got to wake your body up to get the full benefits of these longevity pathways that we work on.
So just in terms of you personally, I mean, what other practices do you use? You mentioned metformin. I've heard you talk about that you take that. Mm-hmm. I imagine there's some sort of intermittent fasting, which you previously mentioned. But there. So what else is it which you do?
Right. Well, there's a lot. So turn to part 3 of the book if you're really interested. The staple are molecules that I've studied in my lab, and I have sometimes a 10-year advanced view of the data in humans and animals. So I can often make a decision personally about whether it's worth taking a molecule or not, and if it's safe or not. And so I've made a personal choice to try to see what happens if I take a combination of 3 molecules. The first one that I took, going back starting in 2004, is called resveratrol, the molecule that is found in red wine. And your listeners might remember that we discovered resveratrol activated anti-aging pathways back in those days and protected mice from a high-fat diet.